Well, I'm back to one of my first ever commercial fisheries I ever fished, which is the famous Moorlands Farm Fishery right near Kidderminster. And we are now into October. The leaves are coming off the trees. We actually had a slight frost last night. But for me, there's nothing better than going to a fishery that allows luncheon meat. It is one of them baits where probably a lot of the time of year you can use it, but for me, when it's gone through the height of summer, loads of pellet fishing, etc, etc, this is when meat and corn can start working amazing. And I'm going to carry on because it is awesome fishing. Dropping that straight down, got myself lined up. Look at that. And then get ready, because like that. You've got a jellyfin. I am on a lovely little lake called Island Lake, and I'm going to fish meat and corn and show you exactly what I do to try and catch the carp. And also, one thing, are skimmers. We all know now in a lot of fisheries, especially commercials, there are loads of skimmers and bream, and in a lot of matches they can make a massive difference. I mean, it's all well and good when you draw a real good peg and you catch loads of carp, but when you're on not such a good area, that's when those bream and skimmers can play a massive part, and meat, I think, is one of the best baits. So I'm going to run you through, I'm going to start fishing, run you through everything. I've only done, obviously it depends on fishery rules, I've only done 1 tin of meat at the moment. Now I'm using a 6mm meat today because there's F1s, there's a mixture of fish in these lakes, and I think 6mm is going to give me the best chance. The water temperature has dropped off. If it was a height for summer, probably use a 7 and maybe have a few 8s for the hook. And if you go to venues with just big carp and big bream, sometimes you just want to fish with 8mm meat, but I've opted for 6mm. I've also got some corn out. I've got a tin of F1 corn. I've got a couple of other tins with me. I've got 2 tins of meat, which is the fishery rules, but I've only chopped one up at the moment because obviously I don't know how the fishing's going to be. It has been cold last night. I'm sat in a hoodie, as you can see, so who knows. I'm sure the fishing will be brilliant. Grant has done a fantastic job here at Moorlands. The work is ongoing. You could probably hear something going on in the background. They're probably strimming, getting ready for the winter leagues, etc, etc. So let's turn around. I'm itching to get going, and I'm sure we're going to have a great day's fishing. Before I start, let's talk about the rigs, because it's really, really important. Like all sorts of styles of fishing, the rigs make a big difference. Now, my favourite float of all time has to be the F1 Maggot. It doesn't matter whether you're fishing for silvers, whether you're fishing for carp, F1s, these floats do everything. Elastic wise, I've gone for 13 Jura. I still think the fishing is going to be good enough. Obviously there's some decent sized carp in this lake, there's some big F1s, and obviously skimmers. I've opted for a 13. I'm sure that's going to be absolutely fine. I'm still fishing with 017 reflow power, but I have got quite a small float on. I've got a 4B12 F1 Maggot. It's 4 foot deep. This sort of style of fishing I've done for a lot of my sort of fishing career, if you like, and I love it. I love strung out rigs and small floats. I think it catches you a lot more fish, especially when the conditions, like the water temperature, has gone down. And that's exactly why I put a little 4B12 F1 Maggot, and I've got a strung out shot in pattern. So what I've got on there, it's about 4 foot deep, like I said. I've got 3 number 10s and I've got 3 number 9s. That one's moved a little bit, let's move him down. Roughly about 3 to 4 inches in between the shot. Now obviously if it's a little bit deeper, you can spread those out. If it's a little bit shallower, you can make that a little bit tighter. But I think over the years, I have caught so many more fish by having it strung out. If you go to a venue and you've got lots and lots of little fish problems, then you might have to put a bigger float on, like a 4x14, have a little bulk and the 2 droppers. But with the conditions today, when I got here, I thought this is absolutely sock on to fish with a strung out rig. Then I've got down to an 013 reflow power hook length, to one of my favourite all-time hooks for meat and corn fishing and pellets is a GPM. Basically, GPM stands for General Purpose Medium Wire. So it's strong enough for carp, but it's also fine enough, I think, for the silvers and the big F1s that are in these lakes. Now I've plumbed up, my normal plumbing up, I've plumbed up so the body is roughly about 1 inch out of the water. And I've always said that, I think for this sort of style of fishing, you can't go wrong. If the conditions were really tough, you know, really windy, then you can put a little bit more line on and even go down to sort of 3/4 or half the stem of the float. That depends on conditions. Today, lovely and calm. I've put my hand in the water, it's quite cold. I think these fish are going to be, you know, little finicky bites, and that's why I'm using that float. Now I've only set up 2 rigs today just to show you about meat fishing. I've also set up an edge rig. Now this lake is quite a strange lake in down the edge. It's very, very shallow right against the margin. I've come out, I've found 18 inches of water. Again, with the conditions, you know, a bit colder, water's gone a bit clearer. I think I've just given myself the best option of catching everything that's swimming. I've got one of my favourite little floats fishing down the edge, a 4B10 carp shallow. They are great little all-round floats. Again, the same elastic, same main line, 017, and I've done the same down the edge because we are getting into that autumn fishing when you might have to try and catch a few on the drop. I've got some little stots on there, strung out, little 4, I think it's 4 number 10 stots, and the same hook. So it's a 6-inch hook length of 013, and again 16 GPM. If I go down the edge and start catching some right big tanks, then I can just up that to 015. So there you go. Again, plumbed up. I'm actually fishing, I would say, 1 metre from the bank. So it just shows you I've got to get a metre from the bank to try and find 18 inches. I've had a plumb around elsewhere. I can't really find anything different. So I've opted to go left up the bank up there where them pipes are. Because obviously when we get some rain, them pipes probably flush a bit of water in. That's normally nice and clean. And I've opted also to fish down by the next platform. So luckily that looks lovely in that corner. It's nice and shady because it is a bit bright, even though it's a bit colder today. And I'm hoping the fish will come down. And I'm just basically going to start with the big pot. And I'm going to put some meat and corn down the edge. Roughly about 50 bits of meat there. And probably like 10 bits of corn. That's a great option if you go to a fishery and you're not allowed to use that much meat. Bulk it out with your corn. You can always put some pellets in as well, but today I'm sticking with corn and meat. So I'm going to go down the edge, put that in, and I'm just literally going to throw 10 bits of meat, top kitten 2. It's a great line wherever you go fishing. And then down the edge I've gone 13 metres with my dolly butt on. Get away from myself a little bit, and this lovely bottom down there as well. Just going to pop that in, and then going to start on a top kitten 2. But the most important thing about this video is to show you exactly what I do with meat, how I hook it, how I present my bait, and obviously most importantly is how to feed it when you start catching. There you go. Feels like a good fish. So it's taken me probably 10 minutes to get my first bite, and I've only threw in roughly about 12 bits of meat. Not sure whether this is a carp or an F1. Might be a big F1. Oh no, I don't think it is. I think it's a nice carp. So what I'm going to do now, I'm throwing at the moment because I'll try and make a little area. If this lake was absolutely riddled with little fish as well, I'd be very dubious about throwing. I'd probably be potting. But I took a bit of a gamble to throw. I think there's no better way than fishing meat than throwing, and also catapulting if you're fishing the long pole. Oh yes, that will do. Look at that. Oh, beautiful that. That's probably £6. Oh, that fish is actually quite cold. Perfectly hooked. That's put a smile on my face. Nice Moreland's carp. I'm not going to pick him up. So obviously having a strung out rig, I mean, people say to me, why have you got a strung out rig, Des? You're fishing on the bottom. As the day goes on and as your match goes on, stringing it out, flicking it past your main feed, it can just get you them extra bites. And by the end of the day, especially if you're catching lots of skimmers, they will come off the bottom. They won't come right up in the water, but you'll get a lot of fish on the drop. And that's why I try, if I can, have that strung out rig, because it just gives you more options as your match goes on. So let's pick that out, another little bit of 6mm meat. Obviously I've fed a little bit of bait. I fed me margin peg, so I'm not really worried about that for a minute. So I just flick that out like that. Let that go down. Full concentration. When you're fishing with like meat and baits like that, the bites you get, especially when you're fishing for crafty F1s, you have got to be totally watching the float like that. That was a typical bite. You know, you do miss a few bites on meat because they take it in and spit it out so quick. But that could have been a skimmer, that could have been a £7 carp, who knows. But that was really, really quick. So just flick that just past your pole tip, let it go down. The float's a little bit greasy at the moment, so just help it break the water surface, and then watch the float. Like that. I put a little bit of float grease on my float because it was literally dotted down to a pimple. I want a little bit showing. And I'll go between throwing and potting and try and work out how much bait I need to feed. That's the most important part as well. Normally with meat, I think little and often if you're getting plenty of bites, and sometimes you've got to put like 30 or 40 bits in and fish it out, but we'll see how the day goes, and I'll try and feed you that information along the way. Look at that, brilliant, absolutely brilliant. So I'll just let that fish come out of the peg. If Jamie would have got that on camera, that's exactly what meat fishing is all about. So I'm going to throw like 10 pieces in and then concentrate on my fish. And you can do this anywhere in your peg. You can do it on a top kit in one, a top kit on certain venues. But I think that top kit in two, for most venues I go, is always the sort of favourite. Sometimes a top kit in three. You can always drop back on a top kit in one later in your match if you're a match angler. A lovely common carp, that. Get in there. I love this. When the water temperature just goes off a little bit, there's nothing better than fishing meat and corn. Probably three to 4 pound, £3.5. Clean as a whistle, but quite cold. I think Grant said to me this morning the water temperature dropped 4 degrees literally within a couple of days, and that's quite a lot. And then all I'm thinking about now is that margin won't be long, because that's telling me that the fish are probably having a bit of a go. I've got a towel there to keep your hands nice and clean. Just pick out the nice little cube. You can always squeeze the little cube a little bit, so it just softens it a bit for the hook to go in. Like that. I'm glad I chose that 13 drawer, to be honest. So again, just flick it out like that, but it's not going down really tight. It sort of lets the float catch up with the hook bait. I reckon them 2 bites I missed would have probably been carp, and they are so quick. Oh yes. A smaller fish. So let that come out the peg. 8 or 10 pieces of meat. I don't count them. Looks like a little, don't know what that is actually. Look like a tench for a minute. No, little cruising. Little F1, sorry. So it doesn't matter where you go in the country, if meat is allowed, whether you're fishing for F1, skimmers, meat is a mega bait. One thing you have got to be aware of, that sometimes the noise of throwing bait in, no matter what bait it is, will attract the small fish in your peg, and you might have to use a pot, or that's why I've got a cad pot on, just in case that starts happening. Look at that. That bite was absolutely tiny. Now Jamie, did you get that? He's nodding yes. And when I do coaching with people, they're saying, Des, I can't believe you strike at those bites like you do. And that is what you're missing out on. You have to be concentrating so hard. And I think meat fishing over the years has got me like that, because you do realise if you don't strike at those little bites, you just miss out on fish. A big F1, see? Lovely F1 that. Didn't feed that time. Should have probably forgot, because I was having a good old chat with you guys. Nice big 2.5 pound F1. See if we can get another bite. The amazing thing is, some days you don't have to feed hardly anything. You can catch an absolute pile of fish on just 1 or 2 tins of meat. So I'm just holding that little bit of line behind the float. It is trying to actually tow through to the left a little bit. Look at that. Bloody brilliant. Love it. Bit of meat. And this might not happen in a match situation. Sometimes this doesn't happen at all. Sometimes it doesn't happen until the end of the match. But honestly, when it goes, meat is, I think, is one of the best baits ever for it. So I'm going to get this one out, carry on. I'm going to feed the edge in about another 5 minutes and just enjoy what I'm doing. Having a right battle with this one. Probably a smaller one. They always fight twice as hard as the big ones. There goes, another F1. Stocky, £1.5. So I fed a bit of meat that time. That's what I said, them GPM 16s, you could probably get away with a 14. I just like a 16. I think 16s, when you go to a venue with all sorts of different fishing, I think a 16 just makes a lot of sense. Don't seem to lose as many fish with a smaller hook. But make sure you strike nicely as well. Don't strike, absolutely amazing. One-handed, when you're fishing short like I am, always try and strike one-handed or one-armed. You know, what I call controlled striking. Just a nice fast lift. I am like a heron when I'm fishing like this. I am right on it, watching that float like a hawk. Like that. A real good cameraman would have got that. He's a good cameraman, he reckons. So we're in. So that is what it's all about. I love it. Smaller the float, the better. I've always found a smaller float. You could get away with a 4B10 today, but I find if you go a little bit too light, it doesn't have the right effect either. I reckon a 4B12 in like 4.5 foot, if you can get away with it. Another great Moreland's F1. Another F1. Been going for a couple of hours now, and the fishing is brilliant. But I've had a couple of little bubbles come up, missed quite a few bites. And and they're all great big F1s at the moment. I've actually cut the feed down, so I'm actually feeding only like 4 or 5 pieces of meat to every fish, and that is something that you've got to definitely put into your meat fishing. They're all great big F1s, they're lovely. And like I said, I've missed probably like 8 bites, 9 bites in a row, so I just cut it down to like 3 pieces, and it's definitely made a big difference. The bites are exactly the same. I've fed that inside line. I don't really want to come off this, it's so good fishing. Carp F1, I've caught some skimmers as well, and I've just changed my presentation a little bit, so I'm actually putting me rigging like that, so it all goes down like quickly. I'm not flicking it out so much as what I was at the start. The bites, some of the bites, not all the bites, some of the bites are so tiny. So cutting down the feed, I think, has definitely helped hit the bites. Other days you might have to put more in, and as the session goes on, possibly we might have to feed a bit more. But when you start missing bites, just cut the feed out, or feed obviously less. I've not potted at all. I just think throwing, having a little bit of meat here, there and everywhere. Oh, look at that bite then. So I'll just run through how I'm dropping that rigging at the moment. So it's towing slightly to the left. So I'm putting the meat in like that, slightly to the right, and then folding me line over and letting the float catch up like that. And when it gets to that sort of area there, I'm holding it. And then, if the float wants to, let it just inch through with the tow, but only very, very slightly. I'm just sort of holding on to that. You can probably see my line behind my float there, if I just move it a bit. And I'm using that just to sort of stop it from skimming through too much. And then get ready, because like that. You've got to be so quick. So 4 or 5 bits of meat like that. Try not to throw it past your float or where you're fishing. If anything, you want to try and throw it slightly short. But you're better off throwing it short than, I think, past. Another smaller F1. If you can catch F1s on meat, you can catch anything. That 13's absolutely sock on for today. If I was catching more skimmers, possibly might drop down to an 11. And obviously, when in the winter time, full on winter, when you're fishing for a lot less weight in the matches, I probably would fish 11 for these. I love this. I think it's fantastic fishing when it just gets a little bit cooler. Just gonna have a quick look down the edge. That Top Kitten 2 has been brilliant, but I've got to have a go. I've been looking after it down the edge every half an hour, 20 minutes or so. I've been potting in like 30, 40 bits of meat, and the same of corn. Now, I've got a load of bits on the water at the minute, because I'm hoping I'll get me float through. The wind's got a little bit more since the day's gone on. Now I'm hoping picking that 18 inches of water is going to be the right decision. I've seen no signs at all down there. It might be the case where, even though I've been looking after it, I might have to use my cad pot some bait in and fish it out. Realistically, I'm hoping to catch a few carp down there. Would be nice. It's not always guaranteed. Just Put another piece of meat on. Just going to put a mixture of mostly meat with a little bit of corn in. This is when that corn, if you want to, if you miss bites, you put a bit of corn on, and normally you can have a few strikes before it comes off. So I've got a medium cod pot on there. Nice thing is, this is when a real top of the range pole comes into play, when you start fishing long with meat. I'm fishing with my Superior 95, 13 meters with my little dolly on, and it is so quick at striking. Let's drop that in. It's just started raining now. Weather's gone from one extreme to another. So just drop that straight over the top. I did up to a 4B10 down there, but with all that gunge on the water at the moment, it might be better with a 4B12 on to get down through it, but we'll see how we go. Obviously conditions can change quickly as we do, you know, anywhere with match fishing, and there we go. Lovely. Not sure what that is. It's definitely a carp before, I think, bow waves off. So I'm hoping this is a carp. It doesn't feel like a carp. Another F1, I think. The F1s are proper. I've had like 5 or 6 carp of different sizes, but we have had a load of big F1s. Get these down the edge as well. Again, same kit, just different float. Could probably get away with a 14 today if you wanted to, especially if you're fishing with like 7 or 8 mil meat. But I think today that 6 mil is probably the best size hook bait for those. Let me just bolt that down so it gets through that scum down there. Just tap that in one big clump. It's a bit different to how you're fishing in front of you. Oh, look at that. That was straight on that feed, that. And then try and hold that pole. Ooh. I'm going to come straight back. That was a bite and missed it. I reckon we're going to catch a few carp down there. As you can see all this fur, a bit of fur that's coming off the plants. Get all that off the hook. It's just unfortunate the wind's got up a bit and it's blown a bit of it off the trees. But it is that time of year now. So I'm not going to feed again. Basically I had an indication literally straight away. So I'm dropping that straight down. Got myself lined up. Look at that. Straight in. Just let him come out. That's what, you know, today's nowadays poles, that's what you want in a pole. Really stiff, really responsive. Another big F1. Definitely felt like there was a carp there, though. It was a great big bow wave, but there is some massive F1s about. I've not actually lost a fish at the moment. All the fish I've caught, I've not actually hooked one and lost it. That's how good that little setup is. I think it just shows that the fish are proper having it. Just get that stuff off. Just nicking that meat enough to get you where you want to fish. Not hooking it too deep. I've still got probably half a tin left, considering that inside or the top kit and 2 line went from feeding like 10 or 12 bits to 3 or 4. And down there I'm going to be a little bit more aggressive. Oh, no wind. I don't want that. So drop that down. I'm just trying to drop that slightly to the right of where I'm fishing, just slightly in deeper water. Oh yes, it don't get better than that. Big bow wave. That's one of them F1s that don't really fight a lot. The F1s are going off like a carp. Loads of water movement when you hook one. You catch a serious weight with them. Look at that, perfectly hooked. Try and get the... It's probably where I want a couple of 7mm cubes, to be fair. There's a few wafts about. You always know when it's October, you get loads of wafts about. Let's go in there. Oh, God almighty, look at that. Proper fishing, that. I live for this fishing. This is what I used to do here on this venue 25 years ago. Not catching F1s back then, that was all carp and bream and skimmers, big roach, hybrids. And it's just nice to come back. And like I said earlier in the film, Grant is doing an amazing job here. They are immaculate. It's lovely this time of year because everything, you know, they start looking at their absolute prime. Can't see me wanting to go home today. Let's go back in again. You can just cut the bait down a little bit. If you start getting a few liners, cut the bait down a bit. Mess about with that like I did on that short line. Them wasps are all over me at the moment because I've got a bit of that sweet corn. So I always ship out in front of me and then go down the edge. Let's drop that in, don't make too much noise. It's never as easy as fishing the short pole when you're fishing long down the edge. Especially when you've got a bit of a nasty wind. Oh, look at that. Brilliant. There's nothing better, honestly. This brings back a lot of memories of when I used to come back probably 25 years ago, something like that. When I used to come here and fish meat and corn all the time. Not so much in the winter, but any other time of the year. Meat and corn at moorlands, as well as loads of other fisheries, can be amazing, and that's what's happened today. I'm going to finish on this fish because we have had a mega day's fishing. I think personally fishing down the edge there, introducing a bit more corn just to bulk your meat out. It doesn't work so well sometimes in front of you. They just want to fish with meat. Oh, get out of there. But another big F1 to finish the day off. We've caught carp, F1s, skimmers. The nice thing is the little fish haven't been a problem, which is always great when you're trying to fish a, you know, a soft bait like meat. I hope you've picked up some great tips on, I think, one of the best baits there is around for catching mixed fish. Thanks to Grant and Nicola for doing us a great breakfast this morning. Let's get him back, and thanks for watching, and don't forget to like and subscribe on the Preston YouTube channel.